Welcome back to another episode of Back to Life. It's yours truly, Buckley on air, and I'm here with a special guest, a two-time state champion, number four point guard in the nation out of high school,
Oh,
SEC all freshman team at Auburn, third all time in freshman assists at Auburn, assistant coach and director of player development at Florida State, named to the Women's Basketball Coaches Association 30 under 30 list in 2017. And most importantly, she passed on an all scout second team player in myself. Today I have Morgan Toles. Tolesy, how you doing today?
I'm great. Was not expecting that. Thank you for the great introduction. I forgot half of that stuff, honestly. So really,
Listen, when you got great people, you gotta shout out their accomplishments.
yes.
So I did my research and I did see that you were from Georgia. It says you were born in Decatur, so Decatur, where is greater.
Well,
Um, but for you, what was it like growing up in Georgia?
it was great. The area that I grew up in, I mean, Atlanta was such a hotbed for so many great athletes. So I was really lucky. Both of my parents were really into athletics. Like they both played college ball. My dad played professionally. So like every day I was playing a new sport. Obviously, basketball is what I ultimately chose, but that community was so competitive, even at such a young age. So that was probably the best thing, just seeing so many competitive young kids and being around that every day.
You did say you played a bunch of different sports. What caught you to choose basketball? Why basketball?
It was my first love, and my mom played, so it was such a, it was something that my mom put the basketball in my hands at such a young age. I played other sports, but really basketball, I think we all knew that's where I was going to end up.
Got you. So you did say that your dad played professionally and your mom played collegiately. So for you, what was it like growing up in a household where you have a professional athlete as a parent, collegiate? Clearly, they kind of know the path at least to get you to college. So what was that like for you?
No, it was I reflect back on my childhood a lot, and I just say I was super lucky, right? You have someone who they already kind of had the cheat codes of what that path looks like and the process behind it. And my mom obviously playing college basketball, like she was so big on like getting her shots up, having a routine, sticking to the routine, and they taught us at a young age about sacrifice, right? I mean, to get to the level they got to, they weren't able to do the things that average people did, right? So
Mhm.
my dad played football, so different sport, but same mentality. So at a young age, we were instilled with a lot of discipline, competitiveness. Like they had really high standards for us, but it was something that we just learned to just, that's just what it was. So I think being in a household that was so big on like I said, routine and preparation in the process was something that carried myself even to this day such a long way.
So with sacrifice, obviously sacrifice looks different for different people, but for you to, what did sacrifice look like for you in high school? And then was it hard for you to like learn what sacrifice was through that process?
Yeah. When I was younger, it was. So a good example was we grew up in a neighborhood where they had like a cul-de-sac. So I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of kids. So at a young age, my mom was like, hey, we got to get shots up before you can go play. And that it seems really extreme, but I remember as a child being really like, man, this kind of sucks.
Mhm.
But she would always say, you don't have to do this. It's up to you. Like, what do you want? Do you want to play in college or do you want to just have fun? And I was like, play in college. She was like, okay, so let's get your stuff done and then you can go play with your neighbors. And that was instilled at a young age, right? So like, and that was not an easy thing to do. But we did it so much that it became, I felt weird when I didn't have my routine, right? So
Mhm.
there would be in high school parties and things that were going on, and I would have to say, like, is this serving me for my bigger goal, right? Wasn't
Right.
always easy. I will say this, so my parents did a great job of balance. It wasn't like you got to get up every single day. It was the days where we were off. They were so big on don't touch a basketball, don't do anything, just go be a kid. So there was balance, but at the same time, when we worked, we worked. So that I think made it easier the older I got. Now the distractions became a little different the older you get. Um, especially when your mom and dad aren't there when you're in college.
Right.
They get up and get those shots, right? But at the end of the day, this is what I'll tell you: either you want it or your parents want it. So when I left my house, my parents weren't in my ear anymore. I still wanted to be great. So I didn't, they instilled those things, but it was just like, I want this more than they want it. So that I think is the biggest thing.
So you did say you wanted it. Was your goal like I want to play in the WNBA, I want to make it to college? What was your goal when you first started like taking a true interest in the basketball?
WNBA, man, like it's there. College was a huge thing though, and back then, I when I was little, my dad played at UT. He played at Tennessee, so I grew up going to like Tennessee. He was there with the Pat Summitt era, so like I grew up around that. So any young girl who watched the Tennessee Volunteers back then was probably a huge fan. So I was. So I knew all the players, and I went to camp. So like first and foremost, like I wanted to play college basketball because the way that they played, it just made it seem like this magical place. And then I got older, I was like, oh my God, WNBA. So both. I ultimately I wanted to be in the W, that didn't happen, but I was so blessed to be able to play in college and to compete at a high level.
So, I mean, earlier I spoke on your high school and that you won two state championships, but obviously you were good enough to go to college.
Mhm.
So, for you, when it was time to go to college, what was your recruiting process like, and what went into the decision for the school that you chose?
Man, I will say this. I am such I've gotten a lot better now. I was such an introvert. So people recruited me. I hated the recruiting process. My mom would have to say, have these people to stop calling me. You need to pick up the phone. So I hated it. I hated talking to people. I hated visits were fun, right? But I social battery super low. So I probably didn't handle it the best way. I wasn't a disrespectful kid, but I didn't care for the glitz and the glam. There are a lot of kids who love going on visits and talking to people. And I think that's great. That's how you get to know people. But I was not into the attention at all. So one thing I did know is that I valued my family being able to see me. So, and at the time Auburn was recruiting me, I mean, I think they won the SEC. Like they were doing a lot of really good things. Coach Nell Fortner at the time had been recruiting me for a long time, right? So they were there and they had been there for years and they just stayed consistent. Even when I didn't pick up the phone, like they were always in front of me and being able to get in the car 2 hours away, that did make a difference for me. So my mom and my dad being able to come to my games and support me, that was big. So, but I will say I was not the best. There were a lot of schools that I just probably just said, okay, well, the kid's not answering the phone. I don't know what to do. So, but I say kudos to Auburn because they did not budge. They were there the whole time. And yeah, I was excited to be able to be close to home, I'd say.
Got you. One, I'm very shocked to say that hear that you were an introvert because in
Really?
me knowing you, you were like a bubbly, outgoing personality.
Yeah, I think growing, what I learned, especially for the position that I had to evolve into, like to get to this point, like I couldn't, there's no way I could have stayed that way and be where I am, right? So I had
Right.
to get out myself and learn that, hey, that's not how you function in the real world as an adult, even a young adult. Like I had to get really uncomfortable to even get to this place. So, oh yeah, it was really bad. Like it was, and it's so funny. I go recruiting on the road still, and there's people who are at other schools, and they'll be like, "I tried to recruit you, and you literally never answer the phone." I was like, "I'm so sorry," because now I get annoyed with it too, and I'm like,
Mhm.
these kids don't answer the phone. I'm like, Morgan, you were literally that kid, so
That's hilarious.
yeah,
Um, you did say that you chose Auburn 2 hours away from home,
yeah,
but you did also mention earlier that you were huge Tennessee
yes.
ball. Did they recruit you? And if they did, was there something else that made you choose not to go there?
No, so Pat actually talked to me about it. Pat called me and she's like, "Hey, listen," like she was very honest. She was like, I love how you play. I just wasn't a great 3-point shooter. And like
Mhm.
that was the thing. She's like, I need you to be able to shoot the free better. And I was like, I worked on it and I just was never a good 3-point shooter. And she was like, listen, if you can knock down threes, you're coming here. I want you. She literally told me that. And this was like my sophomore year, and I remember working on it, working on it. At the time, they had some really good point guards, like elite. And as good as I was, and I appreciate my parents being real with me, like I was not at that level. I was not ready to play at Tennessee. So also for me, a big thing for me, and this is just knowing who you are. I wanted to go somewhere where I at least had a chance my freshman year to compete, not start, right? I knew I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit behind anybody. And I think to each his own. So knowing that at Tennessee, like Pat told me, if you can figure out a way to just get better at that 3-pointer, we want you because you do everything else well. Like I was a pass first point guard, obviously could finish at the rim, all these things. But so that didn't happen. But Auburn was at a place where their starting point guard was a senior and she was so good. And I love watching her play. And they needed a point guard. So I was like, hey, they didn't guarantee a starting spot, but they did not say I was going to play a lot of minutes. So it was fun to be able to come in my freshman year and to be able to do those things. So, but yeah, the Tennessee thing was, I appreciated Pat being honest with me about it because a lot of coaches, they would just gotta, they wouldn't even have that conversation with you. So it was cool to be recruited by them, but I ended up picking a place where I could actually be impactful.
Got you. So obviously, even in that, you ultimately chose Auburn. Did you have like a final three, final five?
I was a
And
mess. I was a mess. You know what? This is actually, a lot of people don't know this. I I actually was about to commit to Texas. So
okay,
yeah, this is I because I was so over the process, right? I wanted to commit early. So sophomore year, I'm getting recruited by Duke at the time. And the head coach at Duke had recruited me for a long, long time. And I really liked her. She was great. We were on the same wavelength, and she had coached so many good point guards at the time that I love. Like current NBA assistant coach Lindsey Harding was one of my favorite players. So I grew up watching her. I loved her. So I remember I visited Duke as I was young, right? And I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, have you ever been to Duke? It's just basketball royalty when you're just like, man, like you see the banners and the names. So I'm like, this is really cool. So what happens is, at the time, she's at Duke. She's coming to all my games. And I'm like, Duke's pretty cool. She leaves that job and goes to Texas. And I'm like, whoa, okay. But she's still recruiting me hard. So it's after the season of my sophomore year, my dad's like, do you want to go visit unofficially? They keep asking. I'm like, yeah, let's just go to Austin, Texas. Let's just visit. So me and my dad, we get on a flight, we fly out there and we visit, and I love it. To this day, ask my dad. My dad was like, "Are you ready to commit?" I was like, "Yeah," but I said, "I want to come back and commit with mom, you, and my brother and my sister together. I want everybody there. I wanted it to be a special thing." Literally, we fly back home a week later. Coach calls me from Texas. She says, "Hey, I got some news for you." I'm like, "Hey, coach, what's up?" I don't answer the phone. So this is a big deal. I'm like excited. Like, hey, coach, I will never forget this. She's like, we got a commitment in your position from a kid that they didn't think would even commit this early. She committed and they didn't have a spot anymore. I literally shut down my recruiting. I was like, you thought I was bad before. I just didn't even, my mom was like, you have to pick a school. You have to, just because Texas, there are other schools out there. I was like, nope, I wanted to be in Longhorn, but I guess I'm just gonna not go to college. So that obviously turned into me. And again, Auburn stayed the course. They were consistent, they were close, and they had done a great job with recruiting me, and I got to know the staff. So ultimately, that's how I ended up there. So it was gonna be Duke first, it was gonna be Texas, and then it ended up being Auburn.
got you.
Yeah.
So you go to Auburn and you play for 2 years.
Yeah.
What was your experience like what was your experience like coming into college, adjusting from high school to the college? It's a completely different game, I imagine. And obviously you did have the luxury of playing early on as a freshman, but what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, it's different. I think every kid, I don't today's age is a little different. There's so many more prep schools, but the homesick, even being 2 hours away, that first month I was struggling. Like I was like, oh my God, like I miss my mom. And I got through that. And then I was okay. But I think so off the court stuff it was okay once I got away from my parents and I got used to just being away and having my own space. The basketball piece, it was tough. And the toughest thing was just the physicality of the game. And I think that and how much more you have to think and process. Like high school, you could get away with a lot of things just by being talented. But me being a freshman and being asked to play early on, a lot of my mistakes we had to live through. which was really good for me, right? Like I kind of got thrown to the fire. So there were some hard days. There were some really hard days, but I grew so much in that first year because I had to be out there. And I think the biggest thing for me, the next piece I would say was learning how to bounce back from mistakes so much quicker than I used to. I used to be so like, oh my God, I turn it over. You just thought the world ended, but because they were like, nope, you got to be out there. I had to learn how to just next play. So that first year was so good because the game kept going. And obviously, you're going to make more mistakes when you get to college because everybody's big, everyone's physical, everyone's talented. So that first year was so important that I got that experience.
Got you. So also you said you were homesick. You had to learn through your mistakes. How much when you were at home and you were in high school and elementary and middle school, that discipline and that structure that your parents put you into, how much did that help you when you got to college and you actually were on your own and now you had to want it for yourself
Yeah.
without any influence?
Yeah, no, it was huge because I like coaches say this as coach speak, but it's so real. The work you put in practice does not actually, it not only doesn't count. Like practice is practice. Getting better individually, like that's a whole nother thing. So having 8 a.m. class and you're not done till 12 and then having to go to treatment and then okay, now we have film and now we have practice for 2.5 hours. You still have to find a way to get in the gym and work on your game. So that is what I had gotten used to that. Obviously, like the treatment and the film and all that was more stuff, but I was used to practice not being it. That's not enough, right? If you want to separate yourself from the pack, you cannot rely on those 2.5 hours. Like, what are you doing outside of that? So I would either get up super early in the morning. Sometimes I would get up at 6 and I would say I'm getting in my shots, whatever, or I'd come back at night and I would do my work, right? So I think that, and again, that was just, I had a routine and I needed to stick to it. And if I didn't, I felt weird. It felt like I felt like icky because I had built that muscle for so long since I was a young kid. And again, ultimately, like I wanted it. So I was willing to sacrifice, maybe not going out, maybe not hanging out with the team as much, you know. So yeah, I would say my parents, I was a big part of why I was able to continue to be better in college.
So with you now, you're at Auburn, you play your first 2 years, and ultimately you end up transferring. What went into you deciding to transfer?
How much time you got? So my
We
my
got all the time.
my story is weird. I never wanted to leave. It's
Okay.
not your typical transfer. I didn't transfer because I wanted to, or transfer because I had to. So I had a couple of concussions in high school, and then my sophomore year, I had a really bad one. At the time, CTE studies were coming out. The NFL was having all these things with like guys who were dying and passing away or having these like weird reactions to later on in life. So we had a current student athlete at Auburn at the time. I think he ended up dying from a concussion. Something crazy happened. So like the medical staff was really nervous. Okay. Again, this was years ago. This was not, obviously now there's so much more technology. So I am in the middle of my sophomore year, I get a concussion and I'm out for a while. And ultimately, long story short, they just tell me you're medically disqualified. You've had too many. So I'm like, I didn't even think that was an option. I didn't even know what that was. So I'm a sophomore. I had been starting the whole season. All of a sudden, they're saying, you can't play anymore. I'm like, what do you mean I can't play anymore? So they were like, you can be a student manager. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'll give you the summarized version of this story. I decide, okay, I'm going to try to transfer and play somewhere else. I committed to Baylor. I committed to Duke. I committed to what other school? Those are the two. Every time I committed, I mean, when I say committed, I was like committed. My family's ordering gear. I'm talking to their equipment people. They're asking me for my size and number. Like things are happening. I am going there. I get a call back from their medical staff saying, "Hey, we can't clear you based on this paperwork." So like it got to that point where I'm like, oh, like no one. I can't play nowhere. I committed to Appalachian State. I was like, I'll just play anywhere. I'll play Furman. All of them said no. And I was like, oh, this is like my reality. So there was a point where my dad was like, let's get a second opinion. So basically, he's like, let's just go and just see what these other doctors are saying. And maybe that'll help your case. Because whatever's in the files, it's saying that you're like going to die if you play again. So, and he he was great about it. My dad, like obviously he played in the league and he was really like, hey, let's protect you. I don't want you to just go out there and be at risk. So everybody kept saying no. So literally, what Auburn did, they honored my junior year scholarship. So at this point, I am like, I'll just play overseas. I literally am a normal student at Auburn. I'm training every day on my own, going to class. I'll never forget this day. Junior year, I'm sitting in a coffee shop with one of my friends, and my phone rings. I had been so used to my phone ringing and coaches saying, "Hey," da, 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 da. I just kind of gave up. I didn't want to answer anymore. Before that conversation, this is important. A week before, Corey Close at UCLA had called me and was like, "Hey, we'd love to have you, but we can't bring you on campus so like until the summer." And I'm like, whatever, I'm fine, it's okay. Corey Close, who used to work at Florida State, called Sue Semrau and was like, "Hey, there's a kid in the portal who has this concussion thing going on. I know you guys may need a point guard. Maybe you should call." I didn't know this was happening. So I'm sitting there, my phone's ringing, and I'm like, I'm not answering. It's 850. I don't know what that is. My friend answers it. She's like, "Hey, Sue Sarah, Florida State, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Hang up, man." She's like, "It's a coach. You need to answer it." So she gives me the phone. I'm like, "Hey, coach. Yeah, I already know what you're gonna say." She's like, "No, hey, can you come down, drive down tomorrow and just we have a machine that can just test this stuff. And based on if you pass the test, then you can play." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah." I get in the car, literally drive down probably wasn't the next day, 2 days later, call my mom, she gets in there. I drive down, I go straight to the Moore Center. I don't meet anybody. I meet the coaching staff for like 5 seconds. We go straight there, they do the test, and they're like, "So you're cleared. Do you want to play here?" Yes. I know nothing about Florida State. First of all, I'm a Southern gal. I know SEC. I didn't know Florida State where it was, who the coach was. I was just like, yeah, I want to play hoop. I want to hoop. So Garden Gold, that I literally committed. And then after this is finals week, I move all my stuff. I'm down there and then I'm on the team. And now this is fast forward. This is how I got here.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
crazy.
was not expecting that. Because I was looking and I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, I look. So you get here. I
Mm-hmm.
say here, but you get to Florida State.
Yeah.
Um, for your junior year, I looked and I was like, it's only looked like you played like 6 games. What happened?
Yeah, this was not part of the plan. So
Okay.
my mom was like, "You need to not play. I know you. You don't need to play. You're not ready." And I'm like, "I hear you, Mom, but they need a point guard, man. I'm ready." Hey, man, I get on campus. Coaching staff is like, "Hey, man, we're going to talk to compliance, see if we can get you eligible to play because we need a point guard this year." I'm like, "Sure." So literally, I'm training with their training staff, Coach Dave, who's still here, and I'm getting in shape. I'm getting in shape. But see, this is in the middle of the season. So imagine just like a random point guard just shows up on someone's roster. I literally, my very first game, I think I played it 3 weeks after I transferred.
Mm.
It's at Wake Forest. And it's so funny. They're like, "Hey, we're only going to play you a couple minutes." I came off the bench and I played 38 minutes out of
Wait,
40 guys perspective. And it was so funny because Sue's like, we got to have you out there. I am dying. I haven't played a college basketball game in an entire year. So I end up playing in that game. We almost win. Like I think we end up losing or whatever. Because this is a year where like we're on the bubble to make the tournament. So like they just needed a point guard because people were just pressing us all game. They had a point guard. So I play the next couple of games and then I end up hurting my arm. Freak accident, like completely just, and then I'm out. So then like I don't finish the season and then we don't make the tournament. And then we try to get the year back. We didn't get it back. So that was my junior year. I played 6 games.
so with all of the concussion stuff and you having a freak injury, they still wouldn't, the NCAA still wouldn't clear you?
No, no, it's a different world. They wouldn't. It's like I played too many games. I don't know, but that was crushing because I was like, "Oh, surely I'll get this year back." Nope. So I just had the 1 year, which was a great year. It
Mm.
was so much fun, and obviously that team we had Cheetah Delgado who had came in. We had 2 point guards at that point. We had a basically the same team that had been there. They just needed a point guard, and then we had a really good year. So.
So then your senior year, did you guys make you guys made the tournament this senior year,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah, we finished fourth in the ACC. We were ranked. We were like one of the top 5 scoring teams in the country or something like that. Crazy. Again, it was the same core group. They just needed some pieces around them, and we made it to the tournament. So yeah.
Got you. So college career is over with. You
Yep.
mentioned that W was your dream. You also mentioned that you were like, I'm gonna just leave college and go play overseas.
Yeah.
Why didn't you
My
play?
dad had a long conversation with me about life after basketball because he had so many friends after he got done playing. He was like, it's not worth it. Just be healthy. So he's like, about coaching. And it's so funny. Sue had always asked me, do you want to be a coach? My mom had always asked me that. And my mom, when she asked me, I'm like, no, my mom was a coach. I was like, I want to be a coach. And then Sue asked me, this is how kids are. Somebody else brought it up. I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a coach. So my dad's like, let's look into life after basketball. Like, you don't need any more concussions. Let's just stay out of, you got through the year healthy, like blessings, thank God. Like he was watching over you. But Sue was like, hey, do you want to be a graduate assistant? And I was like, what is that? Get my master's and I can learn behind the scenes of what it means to be a coach at Florida State. So that was great. So I did that for a couple of years and then I decided, yeah, this is something I want to do.
So with you hearing that from them, was it hard for you to say I'm done playing and go into the coaching, or was that because of the conversation you were having with your dad, because of Coach Sue, and even the mention from your mom, was that easier to transition to that?
It was mixed feelings. I was just so grateful. There was one point in my life where I didn't think I would ever have it again. Right? Like my sophomore year, I thought there was a point I was like, I'm done playing basketball. And I wasn't able to mentally even prepare. After that, I had such an appreciation to be able to even be able to have a year to play it. And my dad had been in my ear about this once I didn't tell them that I was going to play my junior year for those 6 games. They were like, why would you do that? And he had already been putting that in my ear. So it wasn't snatched from me. Is it that makes sense? It was
Mm.
something that I already kind of had thought about. So at the end of the year, Sue was like, we want to pay for your school. We want you to stay around and be a part of it. That helped. That definitely helped. It wasn't this crushing thing. It was like, okay, basketball isn't over. It just looks different,
Okay.
you know?
So then now we get to fast forward to where I get to meet you, and you didn't put me on the scout team. Um, to which I don't, do you remember when when we first met each other?
I do not. I have a terrible memory.
Okay, so Reese, you remember Reese, right?
Yes, we see,
So
yes.
Reese was like, "Oh, I know the people with the women's basketball team. I can get you at least like an interview or something." So I come in, do the interview, and it was like me and another guy, and we were with Tristan. Shout out to Trick Shot Tristan.
Interesting.
But we were with him. He gave us a tour. He was talking to us about basketball, et cetera, et cetera. And so we get in the office, and you're sitting there, and he's talking to us. And I think you turned around and said something to us, and then I was like, he was like, yeah, she's over the scout team or something like that, and she like those are the guys that play against the girls. And I was like, oh, I could play basketball. And you were like, okay, and that was it. And then I was like, oh well, that's not gonna happen. And then ultimately get the job. So then, and this is my first time telling the story on here because I mentioned it to Kai and I mentioned it to Ivy, so I get to tell my little. I need to film on that too. But I had there was one practice where you guys were like, we need like a point guard or we need somebody like another player, and you were like, can you play basketball? I was like, yes, I can. This is my shining moment. This is my opportunity, and this is when I started to realize that I was actually better at basketball than I thought I was
Okay.
because I ended up getting them kicked out of practice. And
You got there you
I'm taking the whole onus of getting them kicked out of practice.
go.
It was me. Do you remember that at all?
I have a terrible memory. Honestly, I think the concussions were like a real issue. Like
Okay.
I do now that you mentioned the conversation in the room though, I remember you saying you play basketball. And I was just like, okay, yeah. Because we I have so many guys. I'm like, I don't think I need another guy.
Mhm.
But and now that I think about it, I think I remember being surprised one practice when you did play. I was like, oh, he's kind of nice.
Cause that was like I've had one other practice where I was like hooping, but that was the first time anybody really saw me play.
Because you were
I
super fast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause I remember doing a jab move on Britt, blowing by her, and then I don't remember. I did something else. I think I pissed Eve off because I think in that same practice we were running some offense for, I can't remember what school we were running offense for, but I was supposed to come off the screen, but she was cheating it, so I just kept rejecting the screen. And so she was getting mad. And then
Damn
Coach Sue was like, make him to use the screen, make him use the screen. They
Yeah.
got kicked out of practice, and then we had to come back that night. And then I'm like, I didn't want to come back. I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have did all of that because I didn't want to come back tonight. And the start of that practice was bad. And Coach Sue was like, you guys need to get it together or we're gonna be here all night and I don't care. And I was just like, oh. And I thought I was like, oh, just the players have to stay. And she was like, everybody has to stay. And I was like, yeah, never doing that again. Never doing that again.
You made us better though. Look at that. Leave me a
It
legacy.
did,
Yeah,
but Letty spun me around in the second
I
practice.
believe it.
I've never been spun around before. And she wasn't going fast. And it was like to from half court to the 3-point line.
Her ability to start and stop, her hesitate, it's not athleticism. It's this weird, it is a form of athleticism. It's not speed, but it's stop and go. It's change of direction. She has that. She had that. And I didn't understand it until I had to go out there and dummy guard her one day. And I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, that wasn't pleasant. I literally stopped.
Yeah,
Once
whatever.
she spun me around, I was like, "Yep, I'm out this drill." And they were like, "She's a college player. She should do that." I'm too competitive. I'm not doing that. But another thing though is when with having played scout a couple times, you also did make me, and you told me this, but you also made me realize that like I could have played college basketball,
Yeah.
low level, but I could have played college basketball. And
Mhm.
you told me that, and I was like, you know what? I appreciate that.
Be able to push them, like, say what you want, they're girls. No, this is power for women's basketball at a competitive program. If you were making Britt Brown like
Yeah, she.
struggle, and especially, and I'm saying like that era, especially, like we had some elite athletes. Britt Brown, Ivy Slaughter, we were competitive as shit. So like if you were giving them problems, right, consistently, not just like one or two plays, like yeah, you should be playing college basketball somewhere at different levels, right?
Right.
So
But like you said, the routine, because I had a skill wise like natural, I never did more than what I needed to,
right,
and I
right.
did just enough. And so then I like get to college and then I'm playing against them and I'm like, "Oh, I was not working hard at all." And I thought I was. But I
Yeah,
mean, it is what it is.
yeah.
Um so then like you said you were the graduate assistant
Yep.
and you did that. That's 2 years and you did another year?
So I did so Florida State has a really cool legacy of like their coaching tree starting from graduate assistants is so big. So names like Josh Peterson, Latara, Carly Tebow, who's at the head coach at Fairfield. Josh is at Kentucky as an assistant. Latara is now assistant coach at Washington, right? The list goes on. They were ahead of me. So there wasn't room for my first year, room for an actual another GA. You can only carry two at a time. I was a student manager first. So I worked with them, same duties, just different title. So then when they left, then I did my 2 years of grad. So that's how I ended up staying on for 3 years.
So is the student manager the same thing I was doing? Or is that completely different?
I was in the office every day. Like I was normal.
Okay,
Like student for me, like I acted like a GA. So I did like I was in at 9 a.m. and I didn't leave till whenever. So and I had my
gotcha.
little cubby and all that. So I don't know. I
No,
think
I wasn't doing all that.
okay, yeah, no, no.
I was setting up practices and passing out towels and water.
I got you.
But so you do that, you're there for the 3 years, and then what is that transition like to go from the GA to like are you doing interviews for coaching opportunities? Like how do you put yourself out there to get these coaching jobs?
Yeah, I'll be real. This business is about who you know. So I tried, like, I'm gonna send my resume, and this is not to discourage people. It is to as much as you can develop relationships with people, right? I was lucky because the people here at this place, um, they obviously knew me, but so many people know them and they trust them. So Sue had been working the phones and calling and recommending me to people. And it turns out that there was a job that made a ton of sense for me up in Kent State in Ohio. And he needed a young assistant who was ready. And the good thing about the job that I had at Florida State in those 3 years, I was doing a lot of just like obviously like setting up stuff for visits and, locker room cleanup and all these things, whatever. But also I had the privilege to also work on some scouts. I had the privilege to do some development stuff, right? So I got office work done, film stuff in, but also on hand stuff. So I felt really comfortable with that. So Sue ended up making the call, and that's how I got my first job. So like, yeah, it is about who you know, and people are going to hire people that they trust. Like when you say, "Hey, she's going to be good," okay, I trust you in your work.
Got you.
Yeah,
So you get the coaching job in Kent State, and you also mentioned that he said he needed younger coaches.
yeah,
Something that I think translates well with coaching is you were a point guard,
yep.
so you're the floor general. But B, you played college ball, and
Mhm.
to me that allows you to relate more to the players that you are coaching. Did that help you at all?
Oh, absolutely. Especially as a young assistant, because it's just I literally just got done. The toughest thing about that, the age was just being able to separate. Like, okay, we're not friends, but I understand your struggle. I understand what it's like to be your age and to try to compete and balance all the things that come with playing college basketball. So yeah, I think that obviously being a former player and being young and being in their shoes just recently was a big strength of mine in my first couple of years there.
Got you. So how many did you do? Four
I was there
years
for
at Kent
five, I
State?
think, 5 years at
Okay.
Kent. COVID hit. I got the call from Brooke and Sue, and then I came back to Florida State.
Okay. So with you coming back to Florida State, what was did your role look similar to what you were doing at the previous school?
Oh man, Florida State is different. Like the way my first year, yes, I would say it's a different level, obviously. And my coach at Kent State, Todd Sarkey, one of my favorite people, the way that he operated was just it was different, right? So it's all about who you work for. He was a little bit more hands-on with himself. So he ran practice. He would allow us to do skill development stuff, but for the most part, it was like he did all the decision making for the most part, which was great. I did scouts here and there, depending on the day and the game. When I got to Florida State, everything was just so much bigger. Our recruiting list was bigger. The workload was more, right? Obviously the level of basketball it was bigger. So when the level of basketball gets bigger, the pot that you can choose from is also smaller. Everybody can't play at Florida State. At Kent State, there was a way larger pool of people to choose from because it's a smaller, it's still Division 1, but it's mid-major. It's competitive mid-major, but it's just different. Um, I would say my first year it was an adjustment. But also now that I become like an actual defensive coordinator, that I did not have any experience doing. So I got to learn from the current one when I first got here, Jordan McCorby, who's one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. I got to watch her work and what that looked like. And it's an everyday grind. Like you got to know every single team and what they do. Where I was used to doing, and there's a lot of programs do this. It's like I would have scout and I would watch Louisville. And then the next assistant, he would have the scout and he would watch the next game. Whereas as a coordinator, you watch every single game and you game plan for every single game. So it's a really cool way to just, you know, learn how to scout and kind of have it all be on you. And I got to learn that for a couple of years and then take over, I think, the last 3 years.
Got you. So now you got my wheels turning in reference to when it comes down to scouting and like being a defensive coordinator. And obviously, you don't want to talk about particularly schemes, but being that you played and then also with watching those games, do you look for certain tendencies when you're watching games to build a scouting report on players and teams?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's like, how do you go through me mentally? It's what are they best at? Okay. How do they score? How do we stop them? But more important than all of that is what is it that we can do that's realistic for us and who we are, right? Just because a team struggles with traps or pressing doesn't mean we can press. We're not a pressing team, right? Okay. Finding other ways, what other teams have done against them that fits our strength, right? I had to learn that as a young assist. I'm still learning this. It's like, what can our team handle? How can we get the best out of our team that puts them in the best position to beat this team, right? To take away certain things from them. So yeah, I'm constantly looking for tendencies and obviously things that we can take them away from, right? So if a team wants to shoot a bunch of threes, Well, the next 2 days, that is our emphasis. Whatever you emphasize is what they will do, right? So if we don't emphasize taking away the three, then they're probably going to shoot a lot of threes. Okay, so it's doing that emphasis and like teaching them how do we do it within what we do.
Got you.
That makes sense.
So also, and you mentioned the fact that you were at Kent State and then you go to Florida State. They're both D1, but it's different
Hmm.
programs. One's bigger than the other in that regard. And you also mentioned the player pool. When
Yeah.
it comes down to recruiting, obviously with Florida State being a bigger school, you're competing with the other major schools. What is recruiting like for Florida State?
Well, it's different, right? And first of all, this as of today, it is a completely different world. Like, does that make sense? Because of NIL and rev share, it's nowhere close to what it was when I first got to Florida State. This is it has become what I will say before NIL, we were way more, and we still are. We're trying to hold on to it. We're so much, and this has been the case for since Sue got here. Relationships matter, people matter, right? We don't just recruit just warm bodies. We want people who fit into our culture, and we want them to understand that this is an actual family. So that is what me and Brooke, who's our current head coach, that was what we knew when we played here. We felt that, and we wanted to continue building on that, right? So making sure that the people that we brought in, not that they're perfect people, but like understanding like this is a family and culture matters here. Again, we're trying to hold on to that, but in a world where it's a lot more transactional, we have to adjust, right? So, and I think a lot of people are trying to figure out this new wave of recruiting. It's not just us, like everyone's trying to figure out how do we adjust, but also not lose who we are.
Okay. So, and I was gonna go into the NIL, and you touched on it. Another thing that I've noticed that started with Coach Sue and it has continued is that Florida State does a really good job of recruiting in the transfer portal.
Yep.
Obviously, it from what I can see and hear, it looks different in terms of the men's side of things. Is
Yep.
it similar where when it comes down to recruiting that there's a like maybe a heavier lean on recruiting in the transfer portal compared to recruiting people coming in as freshmen?
Yeah, I think it depends on the program and your beliefs. So for us, what we have learned, our strength as a staff, I think it's we're trying to lean more into freshmen. I think there are a lot of programs who do a great job of just saying we're just going to pay a bunch of upperclassmen and put it together and see what it looks like. We are so big on development, and that's been our bread and butter. If you look at the past, the kids that we've had who've stayed, KK Timpson was here for 4 years. Amaria Gordon was here for 4 years. Tanaya Latson, say what you want. That was 3 years of development, right? People can say what they want about that. And there's a lot of opinions out there. 3 years of development, right? So it speaks for itself. Some people can just bring kids in and say 1 year, let's get it done, right? And kudos to you guys. But what we're trying to do is hold on to like development matters. And if you are here and we get you young and we can keep you in this system, you are going to get better and better and better. KK Timpson literally which should have been a first rounder right now. I mean, she ended up second round. And right now she will be in the league for a long time. A lot of coaches will love her. She's going to stay in the W because she got really good coaching at a young age and she stuck with it. Um, so yeah, that's our philosophy, and we still use the portal. Like we're going to use it this year, and it's hard, right? It is. It's just you have to. I think you have to find a way to do both. But for us, we definitely want to lean heavier on younger pieces developing, and also sprinkling in portal veterans when you need to.
Got you. So, and we're gonna wrap it up in terms, but I have a couple more questions. When it comes down to NIL, and obviously, again, you are competing with other schools. Does NIL look different for Florida State for women's basketball compared to some of these other programs?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to get into numbers, so I can't tell you that. But yeah, it's no school's the same, right? I'm not gonna tell you where we're ranked, but we're competitive. But yeah, it's obviously a thing, but there are your programs that are the super big time programs that are just like your UConns or your South Carolinas that have a LSU, right? That have a ridiculously huge budget, right? All I can say is that we are competitive, but some of those numbers are pretty high. So we do the best that we can to be competitive, but ultimately we got to get the kids that fit here.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to.
Got you. Okay. Last question about NIL. My perception, it don't look the greatest, at least on the men's side. I can't speak to the women. Is there do you, if you could provide a solution to improve it,
Yeah.
what would you say?
Hooey. So I think there's a couple of things, right? And I'm going to say this, but then there's always a counter argument. That's why it's so difficult. So just off the rip, everyone has an agent now. It is what it is. Agents should not be allowed to make more than 3%. The reason being, I'll talk to certain student athletes. I'm like, oh, you have an agent? I'm like, yeah. How much they getting? 20%. Okay. So if your agent is getting 20%, yeah, no, it's a highway robbery. And listen, this is not to attack agents. I get it. Y'all have a business to run, right? So my point is, it is in their best interest to have their kids go in the portal every single year. That's how they make money. Okay. So if we can figure out how to lower that, because when you look at some of the leagues like the NFL, I think the NBA is similar. There's a cap on what an agent can make. So let's start there. Okay. Secondly, contracts, multiple years. It is so taxing. I'm just speaking from us, but not even just us. Most programs in the country, staffs, they feel handcuffed. It's like every single year, your entire team is going in the portal. That is draining. And it's so hard to build culture that way, right? Now, I'm not mad at the kids. Like, we created this. They should be able to do it. I mean, we created it, right? But if we want to try to have guardrails around it, then multiple year contracts need to be something, or limiting the amount of time that they can hop around. Nobody wants to talk about this. John Calipari has talked about this, okay? He is worried about, and again, I don't fault these kids for doing it. At the end of the day, when these kids are done playing, what is left? Do you have a home? What I mean by home is, I was at Florida State for 2 years, right? Now I know I transferred, but I didn't transfer every single year. When something's hard, I can call Sue. I can call Brooke. If I wasn't here, first of all, we were still talking when I was at Kent State, when I was away, right? There's always a home. I worry about them not having a home or anywhere they can go back to. That's one of the things. But also, when the money runs out, this money is not realistic money for real world stuff. Okay. Hopefully, when they make this money, they save it and they can have it afterwards. But like, eventually, life is going to happen. So I'm like, there has to be more of a restriction from the freedom of movement. Right now, coaching changes are one thing. If there's any issues with the staff, absolutely. Right. I just feel like every single year hopping around, we have to figure out a way to limit that. That's too taxing. It's not good for players. As much as people want to say, like, oh, they deserve to be able to leave, but ultimately, when they are done playing, what is left? I worry about them. Also, mental health wise, I worry about, again, the real world being real. Because what we are experiencing, what they are experiencing, is not real. If you don't like it at your job, you don't get to just be like, well, I'm going to pick another job. Okay, I'm gonna pick another job. You know what I mean? And then when
Right.
you get into the workforce, your starting salary is what it is. The amount I made my first job, I was so happy about it. I was, because and it was nothing. I was making nothing, pennies, but I was like, first paycheck. Woo! These kids are gonna be like, what is that? Not their fault. Again, not their fault. But like, I worry about perspective of what it's like to be a real adult in the real world, right? So all that to say, I think multiple year contracts, lowering the percentages that an agent can make, that helps. Okay. And then just trying to limit the amount of times that people are just bouncing around. But I know that there's a legitimate counter argument to all of it. So hopefully people smarter than me can get in a room and figure it out.
I misspoke. I said no more NIL questions, one other one.
What you got?
If you were playing in the NIL era, how do you think you would have fared?
I don't want to speak too, hey, listen. Let me think. I don't know. I think it's hard because I had such a different mindset. Like, again, I don't blame these kids for doing it. It's normal now to them. The world that even in high school, how many high school kids stay out of high school? The good ones. They go to
Right.
prep schools. Like, this
Yeah.
starts at AAU programs. They are used to hopping. I rarely see a kid from ninth grade finished with the same AAU program. You don't even see that anymore. So like I can't even answer that because my entire life, I always stayed with the same program, right? Now, when I was younger, I played for this AAU program, but like when I was in ninth grade, that AAU program, that's who I stuck with. College, I would not have left if they wouldn't have medically disqualified me, right? So that there's a habit that's being built from a younger age that is just such a normal feeling for them. So like I don't know. I think honestly, like if I was just thrown into this era, I would be really uncomfortable with it. I would. And I think my parents would be too. But there's a lot of money out there. So again, I don't blame them. The numbers that I'm hearing for some of these kids, I'm like, you should go in the portal. If that is real, I am never gonna be like, why would you do that? Like it, if that is a real number, take it. Now, be smart with your money. Take care of your family and but save it, go on a little vacation, splurge, but like make that money last. So I don't know. I don't know. But I again, this is make sure everybody hears me when I say this. I do not blame the kids. I do not. This is a world we created. There just needs to be more structure for them to have success once they are done playing basketball. That is what I'm saying. So
I get you.
yeah.
Um, so I think you have two different perspectives on this next question, one as a coach, one as a player. What advice would you give to a young athlete that's trying to make it to college?
You have to, it sounds so funny. This cannot be something that the people around you want more than you want it. You have to be, actually, you know what? I'm gonna rephrase that. I'm gonna rephrase it because you asked me to get to this level. Just to get to this level. Just to get to this level, um, be competitive, work hard. I think you have to have some type of discipline and work ethic to get to a P4 level. Like you have to have that to be good at this level. The separating piece is you have to actually want to be really good. So have a routine. Understand that you can't be everywhere. Um, the one thing I will also say, there has to be a balance with that. What I'm seeing right now, there's so many kids being injured. They're playing too many games. Okay, this is for parents and mostly parents, trainers, all these people. There's so many players who I love watching. They play so many games. It's okay to not play in all the games. Okay, get your skill development, play in the games, and then rest. And also, last thing, it's okay to play multiple sports because what that does is it protects your body, right? There's a lot of specializing going on, and we're seeing so many on the women's side, so many ACL tears from top players because there's just so much overuse. So as much as I'm saying, if you want to be good at this level, you have to put in the work, but understanding when you have that time off, be really smart about it and be off. Be off and understanding that you've earned that time off, right? Like all these NBA and WNBA players that they really value recovery. So as much as we want to play and be in all these games and all these exposure events and all this stuff, understand that your body has to rest because there's just such an uptick of the injuries.
Got you. And so, last question, podcast is called Back to Life, and you touched on it earlier. There's an adjustment with even when you're speaking about NIL, they're making this crazy number, and then they have to go back to regular life for
Yeah.
some of them that aren't going to be those professional athletes making that same number.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to a person that has to make the adjustment back to life after their career is over with?
Okay, I'm giving them the advice after their career is over.
After their careers. Once
This
once the ball stops bouncing, once they can't catch the football or play football anymore,
this
or
is
whatever
tough.
sport.
I think it's too late. The advice has to happen now. Save your money. Save it. Like I think it's too late to say, okay, now it's over. Hey, by the way, now you're in the real world. So I would try to give that advice while they are getting their money. I'm not saying don't have a good time. Don't if you really need a car, you buy that car, right? But understand that like this is what I'm saying. Those conversations need to be had right now about what it really looks like out there. And there's only 1% of you guys that are going to go to the W or the NBA. It's a small percentage. So there is, and also value your academics. There's the amount of people who are just in like just well, I'm just going to take basket weaving because I transferred 10 times and now I don't have the credits, right? You have to value that. You have to value those things. But okay, more than anything, the money that you're making, like talk to a financial advisor, ask questions, find a way to make your money work and stretch for you, right? But also making sure don't just be in the moment. Have a plan for when it does stop bouncing. That's the one thing I'm nervous about. I think there are people who are still like, okay, I'm making my money, but I know what I ultimately want to do, right? So have some money, like for your maybe the first couple of years when you're out of school that you can buy an apartment and have a year to figure it out, right? Like just do not waste this opportunity. It's so cool that kids are getting paid. Do not get me wrong. I want it to be for something, not just for the 4 years and then I'm done, right? Like make this worth something. This is something that you can, I'm not, and obviously not set yourself up for life, but at least for a couple of years so you can get used to not making the salary that you were making in those 4 years, right? That's what I would say. It starts early. It doesn't start when you're done. It's too late. Then it's just, oh my God, it's a huge adjustment and it's going to take a while. So let's have that mindset earlier. And I think it's just educating them at an earlier time.
Got you. Thank you, Toles, so much. I appreciate
Yes, yes. Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
you. No problem.